plants contain toxins, right? And all plants do, even our domesticated ones from the grocery store. The ones that are out in the wild, not only are the toxins more prevalent, but often they can do some nasty damage. So it's not like they're looking, the world is their oyster and they can go out like they're in the produce section of the grocery store. They are limited. If they don't have a technology to detoxify plants, by default hyperseasonal, by default hyperlocal, and their selection is incredibly limited because there's not that many plants that are safe enough to consume throughout, And then the other point is that the insects were the most important part of that diet. And there's been a lot of studies done with chimpanzees looking at the importance of insects. And again, one of the things we see is when chimpanzees are lactating, which is the highest nutritional need in a female's life when she's lactating, even more so than pregnancy, they go directly to insects, and their insect consumption skyrockets. Finally, our ability to support that brain growth with the right nutrition that allowed it to happen and supported that brain growth. The control of fire, when I mean control of fire, I mean the ability to start it, put it out, control the temperature, control the light, control the heat. The ability to do all of those things with fire was somewhere around 2 million years ago. We've domesticated ourselves. We can no longer survive outside of a culture-created environment if we got rid of all our technology. And I say this all the time. I don't care if you're Bear Grylls. I don't care if you know the behavior patterns of all sorts of animals around the world, and all the poisonous and not poisonous plants and all that. If we stuck you in the middle of the woods naked, well, in most parts of the world, you die of exposure, but you couldn't feed yourself. It's impossible to do. So I say that because in my mind, the ancestral diet is one that is created through technology. Stone tools, and then hunting, and then fire and fermentation and all sorts of other sorts of things. And we've built our bodies on diets that were reliant upon these technologies to introduce foods we have no business eating. We biologically have no business eating, but we now require because our bodies are built on the backs of these. I say it all the time. We're omnivores not by design. We're omnivores through technology. So to go back to your original question, how do we deal with plants? The only way we've been able to deal with plants as long as we have is because, and we see this through time, and it's a focus of a lot of my research, we've figured out ways of taking plants and doing our best to make them as bioavailable as possible, make them as nutrient dense as possible, and make them as safe as possible. The thing with animals is that once you've taken an animal down and cut it open, that's all really the technology needs to do. I mean, there's some evidence that cooking meat a little bit helps make it a little more bioavailable. It's sure that especially with red meat, if we chop it up or grind it or slice it real thin, it's a little bit easier for our bodies to access the nutrients in meat and not have to work so hard. But the blood, the fat, and the organs, heck, in most cases, they're easier for our bodies to access the nutrients without the cooking than with the cooking. So the technology for animals, to me, is really about harvesting that animal and getting it cut open. And then for the rest of it, our bodies can do the work. But for plants, harvesting that plant is where the real work begins, because those plants, contrary to many people's thinking, plants are not put on this earth to feed us. Like, plants are put on this earth to do what they need to do. They need to survive and protect themselves, and they do it through chemical warfare. So they do it because they can't move. So they have all these toxins. So if you look at the technologies that our ancestors developed through time, and we continue to have to rely upon.
Annotated and summarized, easy to share with loved ones. The description below the title for this video has these summary points.